brings me to my knees, nowhere to hide. This weight is crippling. Come speak to the sea that's raging inside of me. All of this worry, to you I will release. I cast my cares at your feet. Take it all, take it all. I trade my fear for your peace. Take it all, take it all. Give me your peace. You pull me up when I feel beneath. You clear the skies. You are my soul's relief. Come speak to the sea that's raging inside of me. All of this worry, to you I will release. I cast my cares at your feet. Take it all, take it all. I'll trade my fear for your peace. Take it all, take it all. Give me your peace. Oh, let your peace fall down from your head to my heart. Let your peace fall down, 'cause it's who you are. And let your peace fall down from your head to my heart. Let your peace.
You have your Bibles. If you're not taking advantage of that Tidely app, the other day, I was over there with Sister Holden, and she got on there and pushed the little button and had it before they even got all the way around. So it's definitely good, and there's some other things on there that you can do. But do appreciate everybody for their giving, both here and there, and do appreciate everybody. And if you have your Bibles and you want to turn with me to the book of, man, y'all act like you know me or something. Genesis. Genesis chapter number 50. Verse number 20. But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. Romans 8:28. And we know that all things for the good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Will you help me pray one more time? Lord, I need you today. Lord, there's so many needs in this place. God in heaven. Lord, I can't, but you can. In the name of Jesus, drive back every power of darkness. Move and help us, Lord. Bring us to an altar, God. In the loving name of Jesus. Last time we visited this chapter, or this young man, and he was just being promoted, and we were talking about forgiveness, and I'm sure that nobody in this place has a problem with forgiving people. Lord, forgive them. Let's look what Jesus said in Matthew chapter number 5. Matthew chapter number 5, verse number 43. Ye have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. Well, that's the easy part, ain't it? Your neighbor brings you strawberry pie. Wait, we're all on a diet now, ain't we? Fried squash, tomatoes. It's easy to love them then, right? And it's easy to hate your enemy, ain't it? But I say unto you, love your enemies. Let's go back to 43, huh? Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. Well, this is getting harder, ain't it? And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Wow. That ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and the unjust, and on the unjust. For if you love them which love you, what reward have you? Do not even the publicans the same? And if you salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. Matthew 6 and 14. For if you forgive them their trespasses, if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. Is that in red and white? That's kind of what Jesus is saying, ain't it? And Jesus is talking about forgiveness, and I'm sure that none of us has had problems forgiving anybody in this place, have we? No? Nah. I mean, this is a church, people, right? We don't have a problem with forgiving. How many's ever heard of Corrie ten Boom? She wrote in her book, and I'm going to try to quit in about 17 minutes. Lord being my helper. That's my goal. So we got a long ways to go. Well, Corrie ten Boom, in her book, The Tramp for the Lord, she wrote about an incident where some people took advantage of her, and they talked and they said some bad thing. I believe it's somewhere around chapter number 10. She's talking about it, and she's telling them, you remember, she had gotten up, and when she first came over, she was talking about about forgiving people. And she had this great big audience, and she was talking about forgiving people that despitefully use them and all that and everything. And at the end of it, they had a glorious time as far as people just clapping and everything. And while she was standing around talking, she looked through the crowd and she seen a man coming her way. And she remembered that man. Flashbacks began to come to her mind of a time when that man beat her. A time when that man led other people off to their death. A time when he herded a whole bunch of women up into one of those little shires, and while they were he watched them. That was the one that was coming up. And he walked up to her and he said, "Corey, will you forgive me?" Now it's pretty tough. You remember her little sister had died, her parents were gone, and now she's looking at one of the people. And all of a sudden the grace of God, you have to read it. The grace of God just came over her. And after a few seconds of all of this stuff she had taught, and she articulates it in such a great way, she reached out and said, "I forgive you." And he just broke down and cried because of the release, the forgiveness of being forgiven. Years later, in her book, she's talking about a group of church people that had done something to her, and she couldn't forgive. Every night she would go to bed and she would rehearse that whole scene in her head. And the Lord began to deal with her, and she began to work on forgiving them. You would think someone that could forgive someone of the atrocities of what the Germans did to them would be easy to forgive. And sometimes have you ever had one of those things happen to you? That I forgive them for this great big thing, but these things just keep piling up. She felt like at one time she got victory over that, and she felt like she had forgiven them, and a friend of hers came and sat down and began to talk to her. And she said, "Corey, how did you forgive them?" She's like, "Oh yes, I forgive them." She said, "Well, they probably in the conversation," she said something to the effect of what they had done. And Corey said, "Oh, I remember what they did." And she got up and went over to her desk and began to pull out papers where she had wrote down the date. Her friend went over to her and put her hand on her arm and said, "Have you forgiven them?" Conviction came upon her and she said, "Dear Lord." Conversation went on and her friend left, and later that night she laid down to go to bed, and guess what came to her mind? It began to replay. Did she forgive? You know what she did? A few nights later, she got up. She went in there and she sat there and she said in her book, she said, "I waited and I kept going through these papers that I wrote down, and I took out every paper and I put it in the fire. And then I asked my Father to help me to forgive my brother." Sometimes it's easy to forgive Biden, but not easy to forgive Brother Jerry. You've never been there, have you? Never been there. You look over here at Joseph's life, and as Joseph has been brought up, and he's been brought up through the rank, and now he is head over all of Israel, second in command. He learned to forgive. And now he's very studious. And now he's taking care of business. And now he's starting to, for 7 years, he's starting to make and progress and store up things. And we get on into this little famine. Great famine. While he's in this prosperous time, there was some things that began to happen. He had 2 children. Manasseh, because God has made me to forget. God has made me to, it's easy sometimes that we forget. We forgive, but we still hold people over. Thank you, Brother Jerry. Sometimes we say, yeah, I forgive them. And we just put it in the back of our mind, and next time we see them. I'm trying to help us here. I got 11 more minutes plus. Sometimes we put things in, and it's easy to forgive them as long as I stay away from them. Hello? Now, there's sometimes they need to be separated. I can understand that. They need to go to jail for whatever they did. That's one thing. But sometimes, how do you go to church with your brother? You know what's crazy to me? Might as well just bust on off into it. We say we're all going to God's green heaven. Do you really think God is going to have cliques here and here and here and here? What is the gospel about? Then why sometimes is it hard for us to forgive? Sometimes we stay in the pit. Sometimes we stay in the dungeon and we hold people to search a. Do you know people are going to make mistakes? Do you know people are going to hurt people? Did you know hurting people really hurt people? And if you're going to make a difference in this generation, guess what? There's going to be people that are going to take advantage of you. There's going to be situations where you're going to have to say, Lord, I give it to you. There's going to have to come a time where you're going to have a Manasseh in your life. A Manasseh blessing. You know what that is? Even though they done me wrong, he still calls me to forgive and forget. Even though I don't like what they've done, I'm still going to forgive. Even though they hurt my family, they hurt my church, they hurt my country, whatever, I'm going to have a Manasseh moment, a blessing. And until you can get that, you'll never have an Ephraim. He had an Ephraim and he named him. And God has helped me to be fruitful. What if we were to take an inventory of our lives today? Do you know God requires more of us than just to come Wednesday, Sunday, and Sunday night and sit on a pew? Do you realize God requires more? I'm glad for everyone that's faithful, and I do appreciate it, but it's going to take more than that. He said, go out and do what? Compel them. Right? What's the Great Commission? Don't raise your hand. How many of you have tried? Let me ask you, how long has it been since you led somebody to the Lord? Yeah, but Brother Holden, everybody I've come in contact with is saved. I understand. Sometimes we have to be the friend to sinners. Sometimes we got to go a long ways to find a sinner. Sometimes they don't know. Here we go with 6 minutes left. Place where all of this is going on. Joseph is being blessed. He's running through the city, or he's running through the towns. He's being fruitful. You look all the way up. You remember the place that flows with milk and honey. You look over there and there's a famine going on. And here's the man with the promise. Here's a man with a promise that God, he's got the same promise as Abraham. And here he is sitting around, and he looks at his kids, says, we're hungry. Why don't you go get whatever? He looks at them in the very first scripture of chapter number 42, and he tells them, why ye look towards each other. Now we've already went through Jacob before, but Jacob, why don't you look over there? Let's look at it, and I'll try to hurry. Genesis chapter number 42. Verse number 36. And Jacob their father said unto them, me have ye bereaved of my children. How does he start that sentence off? Me have ye bereaved of my children. Joseph is not, and Simeon is not, and ye will take Benjamin also. All these things are against me. What did Romans say? And we know that all things work together. Joseph had a problem, his family. Joseph had a problem, Jacob had a problem, and it was his kids. It was his family. Jacob had this negativity. You know what people that don't forgive wind up with? A critical spirit. How many likes being around somebody negative? How many's ever been around somebody that's always negative? You know how it goes, don't you? Hey, I think I'm going to get me a new belt. Oh, you better not. They probably don't make them that color. Well, I think I'm going to get me a new car. You better not. Gas is going up. Well, I think I'm going to do, and the first thing they want to do is be negative. Now here, you'd realize what these young men, I only got like 2 minutes, y'all, and we're fixing to come to the altar shortly. Here these men are. They get to Joseph and they're telling him, hey, look, this is what we got to do. And it ain't that God, you do remember what happened to them, don't you? While they were there, they came into the king's presence, into Joseph's presence. And he looks at him and tells them, you're spies. Do you realize Joseph had the power to kill them all right then? But instead of Jacob looking at him and saying, this is the blessing, he said, me are you trying to bereave? Not only that, these men, were put into prison for 3 days. They didn't know if the Egyptians were going to kill them or not. They didn't have a clue. They were put in prison. And while they were in prison, they come down there and get Simeon and then put him in handcuffs right in front of them. They have no idea what's going to happen to them. Now they've come back to the dad, and now they come back to Jacob, and they're saying, hey, if we're going to do this, you got to let us have this, and we'll go down there, and they'll give us some more. But the negative of Jacob. Now, think about it. Simeon's in Egypt. It's almost as though these other kids don't even exist. All he wants to think about is Joseph and Benjamin. I got 1 minute. Are you about ready? All he wants to think about is what he's lost. All he wants to think about is Rachel's kids. And while he's here, and while he's dealing with this situation, this problem, and he's got a food problem. And instead of being thankful, you know God's got a plan. It took me 25 minutes to get to God's got a plan. Do you realize God's got a plan? Do you really understand that what is coming about and what is happening is all in the plan of God? When Joseph was saying, all of this is against me. No, it's all working for your good. Yeah, but if God really cared about me, nothing bad would happen. What tree did you fall out of? Right? He said in Matthew, it's going to rain. He's looking upon the sun's going to shine on the just. It's going to shine. There's sometimes bad things are going to happen. We are the ones that have the choice. We can either be bitter, or we can get brittle, or we can let it work to our good. I'm past 1 minute over. Y'all ready to come pray? Okay, I'm going to keep preaching. Or trying. Here he is. Instead of being thankful for the sons that are standing in front of him, he's saying, me. You know what I've went through? You know what I had to do? I've already lost Joseph. Now Simeon ain't even around. Not even having a clue that God was working a plan. Reminds me of a guy. I heard a story one time. Heard about a guy. He went through the drive-thru at KFC. When he was going down through there, him and this woman, or the lady that was with him, they went through the drive-thru. They handed the sacks out the door. They put them in the car, and they went to the picnic area. They went down there. They were sitting there. All of a sudden, they opened the bags, and they started looking in. There's nothing but money in the KFC bags. I mean, money everywhere. In both KFC bags. He said, man, we got to take these back. So they got up. They went back to the KFC. They went into the place, said, hey, found the manager, said, hey, these bags that we had, they're full of money. The man was so appreciative of the guy. He said, hey, why don't we need to call the newspaper. We don't come across people that are dishonest. Why don't we have him come and come down here and we'll take a picture and we'll have him write an article about you and all that and everything. And they said, no, we don't want to do that. He said, come on, yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great publicity, all that. He said, well, sir, the woman I'm with is not even my wife. This is Jacob. Just when you think you can start bragging on him and everything, then all of a sudden you find out he's griping. He's whining. Have you ever met a Christian like that? You know how it works? Sunday night, yeah! Monday morning, I tell you what. There's no depth there. There's no depth. There's no spiritual depth. And here we are with Jacob. He doesn't even realize, because he's so pessimistic, he doesn't even realize that God is orchestrating this whole event. Think about it with me. And I'm gonna try to quit. I know I'm boring you, you're tired of it, I understand. But think about this. They brought all of them into jail. When they showed up, Joseph said, "You are spies." You realize that's a test? Hadn't we heard that before? Look just a few chapters over. What did they tell Joseph when he come down to Dothan? You've come to spy me out. Because they knew Joseph was going to go tell his dad. They knew that Joseph was going to go down there and he was going to tell his dad everything. They knew that he was a spy. They knew. Now could you imagine? Now they're standing and the very same thing that they did is happening to them. They put him in prison. What did they do to Joseph? They threw him in a pit. He told them, you guys are spies, and until you can prove otherwise, he put all 10 of them in the prison and said, I'm going to let one of you go. So they're in the prison. You can read it in verse 21. I'm not going to go there right now. But they're in the prison. They're all sitting there, and they're all saying, it's because of what we did. Doesn't sin have a way of coming back around? It's been over 20 years ago, and they're still thinking, as they get down there in the prison, of what they did to Joseph. They put him in the prison. They threw him in there. Then he comes down. Joseph comes to the prison and says, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take one of you. He brings them out of the prison. Didn't they bring Joseph out of the pit? Didn't they bring Joseph out of the pit? And then right in their presence, they took handcuffs and they handcuffed Simeon. Now, can I speculate just a little bit? When they threw Joseph in the pit, I can just imagine Simeon was probably the one that said, hey, here comes Joseph, let's kill him. You know, the one that went down to Shechem? He was a bloody guy. So I can just imagine Joseph when he gets down there and he says, okay, which one of them am I going to? Oh, yeah. Simeon, come here. You stand right here. And in front of everybody, all of his brothers, they handcuffed him. He said, now you guys go back to your father. Now all of you guys go back. So they all load up. Can't you see how God was working the plan? Can't you see how God was awakening their conscience? Can't you see how God was helping them to understand? And if Joseph would have been vindictive, how many want to be used of God? Do you think God will use us if we're vindictive? It's easy for me not to be vindictive. It's easy for me not to take something out on somebody that's my friend. But I want to tell you, when they run me down and talk to me, it's harder to be nice to them. That's just me. That ain't you. I know you're better at it. But if you want to be used like Joseph was used, we have to learn to forgive. Are you with me? God has got a plan.
And if you study this out, you'll see the very same thing was a mirror. You know, sometimes God teaches us that way. Yeah. Remember David? You know what happened to David? David didn't go to war, and he's up there checking out things he shouldn't have been checking out. Wound up doing stuff he shouldn't have been doing. Thought he got away with it, and everything looked good and grand. Oh, wow. All right, we're going. Then he had murder. What did God do? He sent a prophet. What did the prophet do? He showed him a mirror. James chapter number 1. He showed him a mirror. He held up a mirror to him. And when David seen it, he said, oh man, that, and then it hit him. Oh, that was me. I wonder if we held up a mirror tonight, what would God say about Grace Chapel? Oh, well, Brother Holden, I do this, and this. Where's your mirror? Have you forgiven? Oh, Brother Holden, I don't have no problem with forgiving those that are homeless people. I know they're down and they are out and they don't, if they just go get it. Have you forgiven your brother, your sister, your neighbor? Oh, what if God showed us a mirror? You do understand when Jesus was teaching them, he would teach them through parables. Right? And he would show them through a story, and then they would ruffle up. Here Joseph is showing them what he had been through, and they didn't even realize it. God was using Joseph to show them, but they didn't even realize it. I wonder what God's trying to show us today, that we're too distracted. Well, Brother Holden, if you'll get more anointed. I'm sorry, y'all. This is what I got. Well, if you'll preach on something, I would love to preach on something else. But until we learn to have a forgiving spirit, how many wants to have a church that shouts and hates each other? How many wants to have a church that goes and does all these kinds of works, but yet they can't get along with anybody, much less each other? Oh. We need to learn to have a forgiving spirit. I know, I've been guilty as anybody. Well, they didn't even shake my hand. I mean, you do remember they made a song, and one of the little song lines in it, well, he didn't even shake my hand. And we laugh, and we know, you know why we laugh? Because we've been there. How many times have we thought about something somebody else might have said? Sometimes it's because we've said it about others. Amen, Brother Holden. Some of the very ones that are the most critical of others think others are critical of them. And sometimes most of us ain't paying one bit of attention. The next day, it ain't crossed our mind what's going on, but yet you're still in the prison or the pit. You're still way over there thinking they should have done it this way, that way, this way, and the rest of us are going on with Jesus. You need to see a mirror? James chapter number 1, verse number 23. Somebody got it? You want to come play? I'm like way over. I was trying to do this in like 10 minutes. Somebody got it? 23. James chapter 1, verse 23. Whoa, 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 whoa. If any man be just a hearer. How many of you ever heard a message, forgive your neighbor? Why do we still have problems with it? Well, I need to be more anointed, don't I, Brother Tyler? I need to bring the door back in here, don't I? So we can slam it on me. I thought about bringing a sack. Hold your thought right there. Thought about bringing a sack, having it empty. Now here's Jacob. He knows there's corn in Egypt. There's Simeon in Egypt. There's the blessing in Egypt. He don't know that. You know why? Because he's too busy sitting in the same place that he's always been. He's too busy saying, this is what I'm familiar with, so I'm not going to step out and do anything. Can I tell you, Grace Chapel, we're sitting in the same rut. I don't want to try to do that because if I do, somebody's going to be critical. They're going to be critical of you anyway. Do it anyway. Well, I don't want to start a choir because somebody may have problems with it. Hey, do it anyway. I don't want to teach a Sunday school class because why? Uh-oh. Well, I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that, and I don't want to do this, and all we're doing is sitting in the very same rut. We're still in the Canaan when there's a blessing down the road because God's got a plan, but sometimes we're too stubborn and we're too self-concerned, and all we want to do is stay right here. And you can sit in your prison. Your prison may not really be a dungeon. It may be a prison of all of your glorious accomplishments. But because it didn't work over here, and it didn't work over there, and it didn't work that way, and it didn't work for that one, it must not be able to work. Is that the kind of church we really want? Is that the kind of church we want? We're scared to try anything to reach souls. We want to stay over here while the sack is continually going drier and drier and drier and emptier and emptier and emptier and emptier. It's the same old thing, rut after rut after rut after rut, until he finally looks at them and says, hey, go get us something to eat. I've been to some of them churches. It's the exact same thing every service. It's the exact same style every time. It's the exact same. Are you praying for me? It's the exact same. If it don't come out of the red King James Version Psalm book, it must not be of God. Now, where is that at? I should have quit 10 minutes ago. We're staying down here when God He's got a plan. And anywhere you look in the Bible, the plan is taking one more step, going closer with Him. And while we're here, are you praying? I would say get the keys, but now we can just start the car from here. Lord, help me. What would this church be if every one of us was like thee? Can I show you a mirror? Are you doing what you know to do? Are you? Are you a hearer or a doer? Have you forgiven? Or is it easier to harbor up feelings and bitterness? Jesus said you're going to have to forgive. Joseph's life illustrates what can happen when we learn to forgive. Does anybody want to see Grace Chapel go forward? Or do we want to sit and become stagnant? I want to tell you, I get tired. I would get tired of being around people that are never forgiving. Because you know what? I say a bunch of crazy things. And sometimes I get my words twisted up. And sometimes I say like Fruit of the Looms. I do. And I've done some crazy things. Some of them things work and some don't. But what would it be like if I said, you know what? I'm just not even going to try anymore. I'm just going to sit right here and I'm going to let somebody else do it. I'm going to stay right here and we're going to go hungry. Me and my family are going to starve to death because it's easier for me to sit here and starve than it is for me to get up there and every now and then get tongue twisted, or every now and then say something stupid, or every now and then make somebody aggravated. What would it be like? Go ahead, brother. If any be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like unto a man that beholds his face in a glass. Come on. But for he beholdeth it. I mean, he's looking at himself. Go ahead. He looks at it and says, Brother Holden had an attitude tonight. I'm not going to take that. And he goes his way. Go ahead. And straightway says, I'm not even going to mess with that. I'll let somebody else do it. Go ahead. And forgetteth what manner of man he was when he looked in the mirror. Go ahead. But whosoever looketh into the perfect law of liberty, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is. Come on. And continues to look and say, oh Lord, it's me. I'm the one that's been sitting in this continual rut. I'm the one that's give the excuses from the past to keep from going forward. I'm the one who's done this. I'm the one who, when God dealt with me to go start a bus ministry, I put it off and put it off. Come on. He being not a forgetful, but a doer of the word. Does anybody want to be blessed? This man shall be blessed in his deed. So you know what I've tried to do tonight? I've tried to show you as much as I can. And we'll continue some more on the plan, but I'm trying to show you a picture. In 1984, will you stand with me? I'm almost finished. I was finished 20 minutes ago. I'm sorry. 1984, over in Spain, there was a man flying an airplane. And he was flying that airplane. And the alarm was sounding. And it was going off and it was buzzing. Bang, 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 bang. And it was saying, pull up. Pull up. Pull up. The alarm kept sounding. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. The plane crashed into the side of a mountain. They investigated it. They went over there and they found the black box. They took it back and they began to play it. And they seen where the alarm started flashing. They seen where the alarm started flashing, and then it started saying, pull up, pull up, pull up. And then in the static, they could hear the pilot say, shut up, gringo. And then click. And just a few moments later, they flew into the side of a mountain, all because he didn't understand what the warning was about. You know what I'm trying to tell you? Let's go higher, church. Pull up! Pull up! You're leading your children to a poisonous well. Pull up! That critical spirit is infecting your personality. Pull up! Learn to forgive. You know who I pray for almost the most? Those that I don't like. I wish I could say that's a short list. But you know why I do it? Because I want to keep DeWayne. Because I know how easy it is to learn to not forgive. You know what I'm doing, Brother Eric? I'm pulling up to 9. Are you looking in the mirror? Are you really? Has God been dealing with you to forgive? Has God been dealing with Grace Chapel? Does anybody want to see a blessing? Will you meet me in the altar? I sure wish I could have left this on a higher note. I wish I could have left this and we were ready to run the aisles, but for some reason, the detour is to pull up. Go higher, church. Pull up. Pull up. You're going to fly straight into the mountain with that critical spirit. You're going to try straight into the mountain with that judgmental attitude. You're going to fly straight into the dangers unless we learn to forgive. Unless we learn to surrender our will to Him. Hey, pull up. You're messing up, man. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Oh, but it ain't the way I thought it should. Pull up. Oh, God. Help us, Lord. Help us, Lord. Help us, Lord. Pull up. Hey, sis, pull up. There's danger in that. There's danger in that. You're flying too low with your attitude. Pull up.